G'day and welcome to another report card. We are finally up to Zach Fisher, the number 25. And what a year he had for us this year. 24 years of age, will play his 100th game at touch wood, next season. And that will come very early, hopefully about round 5. So 95 games. 95 games. It will be great to have him play 100 games for us. 22 games this year. Terrific. I'll get to that shortly. Game span now across his 6 seasons at Princess Park since we took him in the 2016 draft. 17, 17, 21. A couple of down years, 8 and 10 and 22 this season. Position, high half forward. Spent some time in the midfield, which was good. Saw him up on the wing on occasions. I don't think that is his spot. I think he started the year probably in the front half more, inside forward 50. But as we started to experiment more with our injuries too, 3 small forwards, or genuine small forwards in Owies, Motlop and Corey Durden, and some significant injuries in our midfield, it pushed him further up the ground and gave us another look and another dimension. He gave us a little bit of X factor through the midfield as well. So I think he's found his role, and we know he can play that role really well. Contract status, 225, signed a 2-year extension, already had a year running on a previous deal, which will see him at the footy club until the end of 2025. Draft number, great pick-up by Sauce, picked 27 in that 2016 draft. And we've seen probably a pretty weak top 20. Some good players, but all the cream really has come late. Will Zach Fisher turn into real cream? I think right now he's really handy. But you look at some of the players after Fisher. Lipinski at 28, he's as good as Lipinski, I think. But then you've got Bolton 29, Drew 33, Darcy 38, Tom Stewart 40. Lewis Young taking a 49 by the Bulldogs seems like a great pickup now, really. Key position player that late. Now he's really starting to take some big strides, and it's great that he's with us doing that. Jack Graham, 53, diamond in the rough. Luke Ryan, mature age recruited, 66, been terrific for the Dockers. And a couple of real gems. You don't often get big key forwards who are really good taken this late in the draft. But Nick Larkey at 73 and Mitch Lewis, 76 for Hawthorn have been, very, very exciting for their respective clubs. Season snapshot for the Fish. Round 1 through to round 23, one of 3 players at our footy club who played all 22 games. If you were to say that Fish was going to play 22 games at the start of the season, you probably would have thought, good luck with that. Good luck with that. But he did. First time he's been able to do it. If you were to say the other 2 were going to be at the start of the year, Charlie Curnow and Sam Doherty, they would probably said to you, look, you need to go see a doctor, there's something wrong with your brain. But they're the 3 players that played all 22 games for us. Remarkable. Statistically, bloody impressive. Bloody impressive for the role he plays. I just hope he's able to build on this. I don't necessarily mean get a hell of a lot better, just keep the consistency, but just build on it. Yeah, build on it. At 24 years of age, I just hope he does. Because when you look at these stats, they're bloody impressive. Elite in disposals for his position, 18.9. 8 times he had over 20 touches. Effective disposals, 13.5 elite. Contested possessions, 6 elite. Uncontested, 13.4 elite. Ground ball gets 5 elite. Above average in kicking efficiency, 64%. Inside 50s, 2.8. Clearance is above average, 1.3, and score involvement is 5.5 above average. And you look through some of the stats where he, he's probably needs to work on. He kicked 18 goals. We'd probably like him to add another half a dozen if he's going to play more forward. But I think his role changed as the season progressed. But he kicked 18, but that's average. Pressure acts 14.4. and below average in tackles inside forward 50. I don't think that's the strongest part of his game. I think there's a willingness, there's a strength issue at times, but I think there maybe his role has changed, and we're trying to complement our other smalls, the guys who do tackle, who do enjoy the body contact, the Matthew Owies and Corey Durdens, who enjoy that body contact, enjoy the pressure. And maybe we're using Fisher, I'm sure we are, to be a lot more creative. I've only picked out 2 games because I just thought he had such a super consistent season. It'd be probably unfair to say this game was better than this one, this game was better than this one. But I think there's 2 pivotal games for me. So I'll start with what I consider to be his worst game. And that came early in the year because he started the season really well. And then in round, I think it was round 5 or 6 against Fremantle, he had a shocker. He went missing in action. It was a typical Zach Fisher performance, something that previously to that we've become all too familiar with. And you get that in the first 2 or 3 seasons with a player as they're making their way. But even last year and the year before, there were so many games where he just would go missing, for large chunks of the games. And that game against Fremantle in the West, after he started the season well, and we were running on top of the ground, and we got beaten in that game, he was nowhere to be found. I just thought that was typical Zach Fisher performance, Went across there and just stunk it up, and anyway, he found some form after that. But I think for me, his most important game, and arguably his most important game in his whole career, came against Geelong in another loss. So his 2 most important games for me, his worst game and then his best game, were in losses. I think the game against Geelong, where they outpointed us, and they were shown to be the best, clearly the best team in the competition this year, clearly the best. I thought he was outstanding in that game. I thought he was arguably, I know Sam Walsh played okay, but he's arguably our best player in that game with 27 touches, and really stood up. And it was the first time I've seen him stand up against really quality opposition, but in a loss. And it was a lot of Geelong supporters who I spoke to after that game who said to me, geez, this Zach Fisher's impressive. God, I love Zach Fisher at the Cats. He'd fit in really well with us. He's going to be good for you guys. And I don't think they realised how long he's actually been at our football club. But when opposition supporters take note and talk about one of your players in such a positive light, I take notice. And I think for Zach Fisher, that for me was the most important game he's played at our football club, and it just happened to come in a loss. The game against the Cats in round 18, he was terrific, and I think it was a watershed moment for Zach Fisher to finally stand up against absolute quality. When others didn't, he did. Big tick. Strengths, he's clever. I think he gives us a point of difference. I suppose call it a bit of X factor around the ball. Not so much X factor in front of the sticks in our front half, but more around the ball. Point of difference with that left foot. We don't have a lot of left footers. Great side step out of traffic. Lowers the eyes. Opens the play up. I think another strength of his, he's become really two-dimensional. So I think he was always a strong inside player. He gravitates to the footy. And I think he's really improved his outside game, which makes him now, for us, a lot more damaging because he's able to, I think he's improved his fitness. He was never a great runner. I think he's improved his fitness and he's able to work a lot harder on the outside because he has got good vision and he does use the ball really well. And I think his disposal by hand and by foot is a real strength as well. And he is creative. I think he's just built consistency. That's his strength as well. If we get that output week in, week out, we're going to be bloody happy. I think he's matured. His body's matured. And I think mentally he's matured. And I think I think he's found his spot. I think he's comfortable in his role. He looks like he's really enjoying his football. You know, and yeah, as I said, I just think with our midfield and what we're trying to do, I just think he gives us something a little bit different to the others. He complements them. So the things they don't do particularly well, Zach Fisher does. Size and strength is always going to be a concern. I think it was a concern even before he was drafted. You know, and tackling's not. I think there's a will. I think there's a will to tackle. I just don't think he's got the size to tackle with a lot of vigor. But I think we're starting to use him in a way, or get others to complement him. Yeah, I think that's good as well. I think he's got a lot of weaknesses to his game, particularly in the role that he's playing. I thought about a breakout year as the one word for Zach Fisher, but I think he's had seasons where we've said, geez, he's going to be a bloody good player. So not necessarily a breakout year. I'm going to call it a blossomed year. Blossomed. So that's my one word. Zach Fisher, blossomed. And I thought of the analogy that he's like one of those plants. Not that I'm a gardener, but I've planted some bushes in my time. And a lot have died. A lot of them never flowered because maybe I haven't looked after them. But he's one of those plants, or I planted him in the wrong spot. Yeah, that's a good analogy as well. Maybe Zach, through his time at Carlton before Boston had arrived, has just been played out of position or not developed well. But he's one of those plants that has taken a little longer to flower. And finally, you sort of looked out the window this year and shit, that plant, it's flowered. And it looks bloody good. Jesus, that flower, and that looks good. It looks fantastic. It's not there yet. It's not complete. But it's finally blossomed. And I think we've got ourselves a player. I'm not calling it yet. Nothing's guaranteed. I'm not saying he's on the fringe, but I just feel that he is important, but he's not quite there yet. It's just 1 year, 6 seasons in. This is the one where he's really blossomed. I thought about an 8. I really did. 8th in the best and fairest is a great effort, considering where he plays. I thought about an 8 out of 10. I'm conservative. I'm giving him a 7.5 out of 10. But that's a huge jump from where he's come from. If you look at what he probably got last year, which is a 4.5 or a 5 out of 10, and 4 the year before that, I think 7.5 is a big jump. Can he go to an 8? Can Zach Fisher go to an 8 or an 8.5, 10? We're just going to have to wait and see, but I love this season. Tell me what you think, guys. Zach Fisher's season 2022. We'll speak soon.